I've been wanting to thru-hike the Knobstone Trail for quite some time, but I never really had the opportunity to do it. For those of you who don't know, the Knobstone Trail is Indiana's longest trail. It's in southern Indiana. It comprises about 50 miles of trails if you include some of the little loop trails that are on the northern end. But to hike from one end to the other is about 45 miles. So it's something I've kind of wanted to do for a long time, just to see if I could do it. And so this winter, John Short, my boss, gave me a book by Bill Bryson. It was called A Walk in the Woods, and it was the author's basically his journal of a hike he and a friend had done on the Appalachian Trail. So that kind of got the fever going again for me to think about hiking the Knobstone Trail. I had hiked segments of it, portions of it, but never the whole thing in one shot. So I just decided I was going to do it, even if I had to do it by myself. Obviously, I'd prefer to have somebody with me, but I wasn't sure who would either have the time or the desire to do something like that. So I finally asked Doug Painter, who has been a good friend of mine now for several years. Doug and I have done quite a few weekend backpacking trips, but it's always been 2 or 3 miles out and 2 or 3 miles back the next day, sort of thing. Nothing that really requires any planning in the way of food and supplies and things of that nature. So Doug thought about it for a while. He wasn't too sure to begin with, and then he finally decided he would go with me. So we talked about it and set a date of early May, and we checked for our vacation times and things, and we finally came to the week of the second week in May. And the reason we wanted to do early summer or late spring was 2 reasons. Number one, the temperature would be a lot cooler, and the most importantly, water would be more readily available in the creeks and things. 'Cause on the Knobstone, the creek beds all tend to dry up during the summer and early fall. So we picked the second week in May to do it. Our plan was to average 8 miles a day. We thought we could do 8 miles a day for about 6 days and finish it. And not really knowing exactly how many miles we could hike day after day after day. But anyway, so we Saturday morning, May 2nd, we drove 2 cars down to southern Indiana. We dropped my car at Delaney Park, which is on the northern end of the trail, and left it there, and then we proceeded south towards the southern end, and along the way we made food drops at different points, different trailheads along the way, which I'll talk about a little bit later in the video. And so we drove all the way to the southern end of the trail, which is at Deem Lake Trailhead, which is near the Deem Lake State Recreation Area, near Sellersburg. And so that's where we'll pick up the video, and most of these are still pictures, and there are some video clips that I took daily to try to sort of make a video journal of the trail. I try to do that every day, and then I'll narrate some of the other photos that might be of interest to you. So with that, we'll get started. So I'm standing in the middle of Bowery Creek. This is about 2.4 miles into the hike, about an hour. We decided to take a break here because apparently the trail gets a lot harder after this. Real nice, pretty creek down in a valley, and I think Doug said after this we got about a 400-foot climb to get out of it. There's Doug way over there eating. So at this point we feel pretty good, packs feel pretty good. Weather's been perfect, so that's that.
Okay, we're about 5:30. We're at about mile marker 7.3, and we're gonna stop here for the night. We had planned on stopping at mile marker 6, which is on top of Round Knob. There's a campsite up there. You're supposed to be able to see Louisville, but there was somebody camped there, so we pushed on. Everything's going fairly well. We're pretty tired. Just that extra mile and a half or mile point 3. We think that may be Round Knob over there. But other than being pretty sore or I'm pretty tired, we're in okay shape. Feet and legs are holding out okay. Just a real pretty campsite up here, nice and grassy. Trail runs right through it, but who cares? So that's it. So right now we're at what, mile marker coming up on 11, right?
I think we're about 10:07.
So we're about a quarter of a mile from the big drop, the big climb down onto Highway 160. We've gone, we'll be about 3.5 miles this morning already. It rained all night last night and this morning, but so far on the trail it's held off for us. We can hear the cars up on the highway. Feel pretty good considering yesterday. Yesterday was a real beat down. We did 7 miles, and so we don't know how many miles we're going to do today. But anyway, we're kind of stopped here at 10.7, and look, there's all kinds of trees down that have been cut away from the trail. But obviously, last fall a big windstorm went through here. Alright, we're out here on 160 now, and we just picked up our food cache, and looks like we got a pretty good climb ahead of us. Doug has already started up the hill here. Let's see if we can find him. He's way up there. There he goes. Doug is just sprinting up this hill. What a mountain man. He's just like a cat on his feet. Just light on his feet. I can't keep up with him. I'm just taking a break and he's already at the top of the hill. Alright, this is day 3 of our trek. We're about miles, a little over 17. Here comes Doug. Fresh as a newborn baby, man. He's just kicking butt on this trail. Look at the footwork, man. He's just like a cat on his feet. Wow, what a man. As you'll notice in a lot of these photos, there were just tons of trees down over the trail. Um, Last fall there was some serious windstorm that went through southern Indiana, and looks like it really did a lot of damage. We had done an overnight hike last fall, a couple weeks after that happened, and there were trees down all over the trail, and we had to climb through quite a bit of brush to get through them. So we were somewhat concerned that a large part of the trail would still be blocked with downed trees, but as we found out, they had been pretty well cleared. We ran into a turkey hunter where he was familiar with the area, and he said that 2 guys with chainsaws had actually thru-hiked the whole hike and cleared the trail, which is pretty incredible considering there were just hundreds and hundreds of trees. We just come up to sections. There would be a 50 or 60 foot section along the trail that would just have had large trees blown over it, and they'd all been cut away, and it was pretty much like that the whole trail. And so you figure that's just a small fraction of the whole forest. You can get kind of an idea of the amount of damage that was done. But anyway, had to have been a pretty big task to cut those away, because there were some pretty serious trees in there, and it would have taken a pretty big chainsaw to cut them. But anyway, apparently a couple guys with chainsaws thru-hiked it and cut them all away, and sure made our life a lot easier. But in the photos you'll see quite a few of the windfalls, the trees. So this is day 3. We're at mile marker about 22.2. We've been averaging a little over 7 miles a day. We hiked a day from about 10 o'clock till about 3:20, 3:15, something like that. So it seems like 7 miles a day is our magic number. Any more than that, and we're just pretty much shot. Other than just being tired and sore, no major issues as far as our bodies holding up. We're camped right now right next to this real nice creek where we can get water. Doug's off cutting firewood. So we've had a pretty good day. Finally have a chance, sun shining, and have a chance to kind of dry out. We got rained on again last night. So that's about that. One of the best parts of this trip was just seeing the wildflowers, as you saw in this picture and in some previous photos. Just the whole woods was in bloom, and just made for a really nice walk, and just very enjoyable looking at all the different colors and types of wildflowers that were along the trail. So the biggest consideration for a hike of this length was what to do about food and supplies. We knew we were going to have cache drops or supply drops at some of the different trailheads.
We weren't sure how we were going to store the food to protect it from the weather and the animals, and there had also been some reports of people's food drops being pilfered with by other hikers down there. So I got the idea for the buckets from the internet, and so we went to Home Depot and bought these. They're $3 plastic paint buckets with lids, and we just took some random spray paint, and painted them a camouflage pattern. And we loaded them up with water and fuel for the stoves, and a couple days worth of food, and spare clothing. And so these were we kind of figured that based on our estimation of 8 miles, 8 mile per day average, it worked out that we dropped these. We had these drops about every 13 to 14 miles. So we were never more than 2 days a supply of food that we were carrying at any one time. So here's you can see our first drop point, our first pickup, I guess, and you can kind of get an example of the buckets. We just hid the buckets about 100 feet off the trail in the brush, and they were very well concealed. You couldn't see them. In fact, one point where I went to retrieve the buckets, I knew where they were supposed to be, and I still had a hard time finding them. So it worked out real well, and it made the trip a lot easier, not having to carry all that extra stuff.
We're at about mile marker 25.5. We just got our drop at Lyoto. Went down a little valley and then we started a climb. I have no clue how many vertical feet it was. It was a lot of stair steps, a lot of very steep trail. We're up at the top of the ridge now. This is just north of Lyoto. Pretty good view through here. I don't know if you can see. We're up pretty high. That was a big one. We picked up a dog. Here he comes. We call him Bear. We got him at Lyoto Trailhead. He came up and started begging food from us and laying around our feet. And when we hit the trail, he followed us. So we not sure how long he's going to be with us, but he's very friendly and comes and rolls around at your feet. Here comes Doug finally up the top. Nice sunny weather, but at the moment I'm not sure. I'd rather prefer the overcast because of the heat. So that's all.
Surprisingly enough, we didn't see a lot of wildlife. The first night camped on the ridge. That evening we heard quite a few coyotes yelping right around dusk, and then we just heard a whole bunch. There were just dozens and dozens of whippoorwills all around us that sang all night, and then we were abruptly awakened probably about 1:30 or 2 o'clock in the morning by the coyotes again, this time sounding much more close. In fact, they were so close I halfway expected them to come running through our camp at any time. They never did, but at any rate, that can be pretty unnerving at 2 o'clock in the morning. Other than that, we saw quite a few box turtles on the trail, some squirrels, and then at the very end we saw some wild turkeys. But surprisingly, didn't see a whole lot of other wildlife, a lot of signs of deer, but that was about it. The other nights we camping in creek valleys, and there would just be dead silence. You wouldn't hear anything. In fact, I woke up one night in the middle of the night and it was just dead quiet, and I kind of thought maybe I'd gone deaf, and I had to make a little bit of noise just to confirm it. Yes, I could still hear. It was just the silence was deafening. It was really surprising. So here's a nice little box turtle, which was we saw tons of those on the trail. But anyway, that's that.
Okay, we're at mile 29.7. Pretty much got our tails kicked today for the last 4 miles. Big, huge hills. We're down in a creek valley right now, and we hit the trail right around 10 o'clock. I don't know what time it is now, probably 4:35. We still have our dog with us. We found out his name is really Wilbur because he's got tags, and it looks like we're facing the prospect of having to haul him home. Ain't that right, Wilbur? A friendly dog. Always likes to be in the way. I have no clue what we're going to feed him, but anyway. Weather's been good, about 70 degrees, very hot hiking. I can't imagine how anybody would do this when it's 85 or 90 degrees. This is probably as hard as, or if not the hardest section of trail we've done, north of Lyoto, between Lyoto and Elk Creek. If you read enough stories about backpacking and watch a lot of the documentaries, you'll soon find that people get dubbed with trail names. Just over a period of years of hiking with Doug, knowing how Doug likes to start fires and things, I've decided to give him the trail name of Torch. And in this video, it's pretty obvious why that is. Doug's always carrying a torch to start a fire. In fact, the first time he went backpacking with us, he had like a big propane torch and a 2-pound propane tank, the kind that you would use to sweat copper pipes with in your home. And as you can see here, Doug has somewhat downsized his torch a little bit, but he still always has it. And after starting this, the campfire on Wednesday night, after it rained all day long and everything was soaking wet, I decided that he indeed did deserve the name of Torch, and probably without that torch we would have had one wet, cold night. We did also find out that by accident that paper towels soaked in cooking oil also makes a pretty good fire starter. But anyway, here's Torch doing his thing. One thing I found out in camping is you don't mess with another man's fire. It's kind of like two cooks stirring the same pot, and so I just let Doug do his thing, and I cut a little bit of firewood when needed, and otherwise just stayed out of his way. This is day 5. We're at mile marker 36. Today has been a real beatdown. It started raining about 5 o'clock this morning, and it quit for maybe a half hour, 45 minutes, long enough for us to break camp. And then not much longer after we got on the trail, started raining again, and it rained all day. We finally stopped probably around 4 o'clock or so. We put in a little over 6 miles. Right now we're at mile marker 36. We're probably about 9 or 10 miles from the car. And we're pretty much, everything got soaking wet. We set up the tents in the rain under the tarp. Luckily we got a fire going. Torch there got it going for us, and we're just trying to dry out as best we can. Luckily the insides of the tents and all of our sleeping gear is fairly dry, and the rest of the stuff we're slowly getting it dried out. So that's day 5. We got a nice campsite here next to a real pretty creek. We've actually camped here before. That's how we knew this was here. We just came down off of that big hill, and so that's our camp. Day 5. In this little film clip, we'd actually seen some turkeys run across the clearing there, and we were hoping they would cross over in front of us further up the trail and we'd get a chance to get them on video. I never did see them again, but the video is just a nice little walk in the woods here, and at the time we were shooting, I didn't realize all the birds and things were singing quite that much. Alright, here we are, day 6 into the trail, for mile 45 and something. We passed mile 45, maybe a quarter of a mile back. We're coming into Delaney Park. We started at mile 0 last Saturday, probably around noon, and right now it's Thursday, probably around 2 o'clock, give or take. So we've climbed a lot of hills and crossed a lot of streams. Got pounded by rain all day yesterday, and the original plan was to pick up supplies at Oxley Trailhead today and then hike another 2 or 3 miles and stop and then finish this tomorrow. But just the way the weather's been going, and we were pretty beat after yesterday, we decided to drop our packs at Oxley and hike the last 9 miles without packs. And so we've been on the trail, what, about 5 hours today, you think?
Yeah.
So we're coming up on the cars. There's our van. We're going to go up here and take a shower and go back and pick up all of our stuff along the roads, and that's the end of the Knobstone Trail for 2009. Okay, yep.
Alright, well, Verl and I first started discussing this trip back in January or so, and Verl wanted to know if I wanted to hike the whole Knobstone Trail, and I thought, not too sure about that, so I kind of let it ride for a while, and I got a book on Indiana trails and started reading up on it and did a little research, and the more I thought about it, I didn't want to let Verl down because I knew he really wanted to do the trip, and so I finally decided I'd commit to it, and we started kind of planning out how we were going to do this, and Verl came up with an idea of getting these 5-gallon buckets to put our cache stuff into for drop points, and so we kind of got that all figured out. And the more closer it got, I've been going over to Cardinal Fitness and working out, trying to get myself in shape, and so finally the day came up pretty quick, and so we got going on the trail, and first I don't know, I'd say 2 miles or so, 3, wasn't real bad, and then all of a sudden we hit some pretty big hills, and I started thinking to myself, wow, we got 40 some miles to go yet of this, and I'm not sure if I can do it, but it seemed like we'd get rid of a mile or two, and it got a little easier, and by the end of the first day we were pretty beat. Been a pretty long day, and we had a point where we wanted to stop, and there was a couple already camping there on top of Round Knob. So we went on around the edge of the hill there and got on the other side, and it was another big climb, and we were pretty beat when we got there, so we kind of got relaxed, got our campsite set up, and got our second wind, felt pretty good. Each time, we got a little better at it, a little stronger. Then we got to our second point where we were going to pick up our stuff, and Verlin found a friend there by the name of Wilbur, a dog, cross between a chow and a collie is what it looked like to us. He didn't have a tail. We nicknamed him Bear because we didn't know his name. Verlin felt sorry for him, started watering him, gave him a little beef jerky, and the next thing you know, he's going down the trail with us, and we thought, well, we'll go down here a ways and turn around and go home. Well, he didn't. He went the whole trip, or the whole next 7 miles or so with us, and spent the night with us. And we finally figured out he had a collar with a name, and Verlin called the owner, and she said, "Oh, you got Wilbur." So we figured out that this wasn't the first time Wilbur had done this. So she met us at the next trailhead, and when we got there and he went home, he was all muddy from being out in the creeks, and he jumped right into her truck. But it was pretty funny. We ran into a couple of turkey hunters and had some conversation with them. But overall, I think, the trip was really nice. I enjoyed the wildlife, the birds, just the serenity. The whole trail was really nice, and we had times that when we'd just take off and get by ourselves and walk, and that was some good time to just reflect on what's going on in our life. And we pushed each other. That was good. By the time we got to the end, it didn't really seem like we'd gone 45 miles to me. We had our moments when it was near the end of the day when we were pretty tired, and but each morning get up, feel rejuvenated and ready to go. So looking back, I don't know if I would want to do the whole thing again, but I think, given the amount of time of rest in between, it might be a challenge to do again. I don't know. But I really enjoyed Verlin's company and the trip, and I'm glad we did it. And it was a pretty big accomplishment. I feel pretty proud that we did it. So that's about it.